Hello there, the name's Barker Tinsdale, and I'm here to relate a story to you about a group of adventurers calling themselves the Rhymers that went to Icewind Dale to battle the evil Frost Maiden who had taken over Icewind Dale and turned it into a frozen hell. The wooden walls of this village provided a modicum of protection to the 1,000 or so citizens. The wooden walls extended into the frozen lake that had been frozen due to the extreme cold that was in Icewind Dale at the time. This was a fishing village that was known at the time as Torgos. Nerth Max Hildner was the mayor of this fishing village, but many in this friendly little village didn't trust this human who was thought to be a spy for a group of less than savory beings, should you will. And I sit here in the inn called the Three Flags Sailing, named in remembrance of an inn that once was very great and very well known. But I am going to tell you the story of the Rhymers. We had a group made up of a Luxodon barbarian known as Bodar. There was a red dragonborn druid known as Krimtash. There was a Tabaxi bard, one after my own profession, would you know. The name was Flew Gauges. There was also a human fighter known as Talon von Hindenburg. There was also a Goliath, or Goliath, depending on if you need it to rhyme or not, that not much is known about this one. Nor did, well, I'll get to that in time. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But whether it was the environment, or it was the Frost Maiden, or something else happened, one of these numbers weren't long for the group. But let me get back to the story here. The ale and the fish stew at this renowned Three Flags Inn. Oh, it was marvelous, let me tell you. Before, well, we'll get to that as well. But I had once eaten here long ago before the Frost Maiden had shown up and did her wicked wizardry or whatever you call it. And it was amazing. Something to write home about, something to write stories about, something to make epics about, which, you know, and, well, it's surely sad what happened. But I tell you what, something you'd never want to do was cross old Ma. Oh, she was a sight to behold, was she? A very plump woman, but with the heart of an angel, and the countenance, if you pissed her off, of a barbarian in its rage. Yes, chances are that if you crossed Ma, you wouldn't live to tell the tale. But it's here that a dog burst into the Three Flags Inn, and trailing behind this creature who had obviously been through a lot of peril and dangerous times was some chewed reins that would have attached him to other dogs in a convoy or a group of dogs that would pull the sled. The chewed reins showed that it took much time for this dog to chew through because they were thick leather as to prevent the cold from making them brittle. The dog came in barking ferociously as though it was mad and had gone crazy, and perhaps it had. You could see the wild look in its eye as though it did not know what else to do. But as the barking and the howling and the whining continued, it became more apparent that this dog was looking to relay a message of sorts, kind of like a warning or something had happened and he was trying to get help. Everyone noticed this dog, who seemed to belong to someone, because it then saw a lady that it went up to, a very pregnant woman who upon seeing the dog fainted dead away. And according to Ma, this lady named Nalina was Keegan's wife and about 8 months along, if any indication of Ma. And as I said, you don't cross her, you'll never cross Ma, so if she would have said a week along, you would have agreed. But the sled dog, named Boy, according to Nalina later on, belonged to Keegan, her husband, who had raised it from a pup and was very, very fond of this dog. This all came about, of course, after Nalina was revived and given a shot of whiskey and a bowl of stew to warm the belly and to help kind of nourish her a little bit to get the cold of the shock, out of her system. But according to Nalina, Keegan had taken Boy and a group of travelers to travel up the side of Keegan's cairn. But this dog kept trying, as Nalina was relaying the story, to get people to come out, but people kept ignoring him, wanting to find out, what Nalina was talking about. As they had no idea, but it was most apparent to those who related the story to me that the adventurers that I aforementioned were very interested, especially when Boy took the shoes of the Red Dragonborn and began to try to drag him outside, I guess you could say. But Nalina, during all of this, said that whether she had to go alone or where she had a group, that she was going up there to get her husband, dead or alive. She was going. But Ma would have none of that, the loving sweetheart that she was. But the 5 adventurers that we now know as the Rhymers said that they were up to the task, that they would go after her husband, and whether he be dead or alive, they would bring him back. Nalina then relayed the way that they could identify Keegan up there. That Keegan was hired by a group to lead them up Kelvin's cairn, because that's what he loved doing, was being a guide, kind of like a ranger. But that these people would have gone along with Keegan out to Cair Konig to supply before the trek up the side of the mountain. Now keep in mind, up here in the Icewind Dale, blizzards blow up at any time. It's constant snow and ice on the ground, and this place has been known to have quite the Yeti infestation. But let's see. And Nalina offered the group some of her scrimshaws that had been known to sell for 50 gold pieces at least. And they were carved from the skulls or the heads of knucklehead trout, which is very abundant in the lakes of Icewind Dale. She said that regardless of whether they rescued him or they recovered him, she would pay just for a peace of heart, peace of mind, and for closure. And Ma, being the sweetie that she is, said that she would offer free meals and room while the adventurers were in town, and any time that they come back, they had this free room and board. But now, let me get into about when the adventurers headed out. I want to remind you all here that it's nothing to be the temperatures in Icewind Dale to be in the negatives. In fact, during this time in their lives and their history, it was a hot day if it got above -25. The wind was constantly blowing as though you were on an ocean or the beach of a sea, constantly blowing, making it colder than before. But these adventurers did not care. They had given their word they were going to rescue or recover the body of Kagan. This hike could have gone either the route of a city or trail that's well known, or they could have cut off the majority of the time, in fact cutting their time in half if they had just traveled across the dwarven tundra here. And that's what they decided to do, feeling that time is of the essence. That's what they did. But lo and behold, in the Icewind Dale, as mentioned, the blizzards blow up at any time, and this is what happened here. A blizzard blew up, trapping the adventurers, who dug themselves down into a hole, and then barricaded them from the wind and the snow, producing fire that would not melt the snow. They stayed as warm as they could here during this blizzard that lasted for hours and hours. But the calls of nature do come to us all, and many had to get out and answer that call. They got lost, they took damage from frostbite, they were hurt, they were injured, they were tired. They had wandered away from the safety of the digging into the snow and ice, but they were found. And even though 2 of them lost their lives, Boy, true to his word and to help his master, dug down. It's as though he could smell something. He found something that could help these 2 adventurers that had died, because it's as though they were wakened from the snow and from the cold, not being used to it. But Boy helped him, and then by that, he was doing his best to help Keegan. But after the blizzard was over, they were all still alive. 2 of them once again. They made their way to the bottom of the mountain, where they encountered the destruction of the camp that had belonged to Keegan, an overturned sled, 2 boxes, one emptied of provisions, one that had been unopened, and they had found the rest of the dog sled team. And they let the dogs go, cutting them loose from the harnesses that bound them to the sleds. The dogs, as smart as they are, headed back to Targos to find safety and warmth in their house. But here is where the story starts to take another turn, if you will. The encampment and the sounds of the dogs had attracted 2 Craig cats who leaped down and began to attack the party. But the adventurers were up to the task, I tell ya, and it's as though I was there myself. The adventurers, they swung their axes, they forward their spells, they shoved their spears, and they came out victorious. And even though some were wounded in the process, they came out victorious, having taken the animals' lives and kept them from taking their lives instead. I tell you, it's a wonderful beginning to an adventure, and I hope that you'll keep listening to the rest of what happened to the Rhymers in Icewind Dale. The Rhymers arrived to find Kagan in the snow, hurt, biting, and bloodied. But what had done it? They wondered. He was in really bad shape, as you can imagine after being up there for a while. Quite concussed and definitely in bad shape, said that they were attacked by an adult Yeti. You can imagine the gurrs and the growls as the Yeti attacked them, relentless beasts that they are, with the claws and the teeth and the howls that sound like humans. The Yeti come in, he attacked, he destroyed, he killed, and they managed to get away with quite a few of the original members. The Rhymers, along with Kagan, help him up, and they decide to climb up towards the Yeti's cave, where they believe that there might still be some help for those who were taken by the Yeti. They travel up this side of the mountain of the cairn, of Kagan's cairn here, and they find blood outside of a cave entrance. As they get nearer to the cave's entrance, they hear the cooing and the awing of a tiny little Yeti baby. Although from this vantage point they could not see what it was. But once you've heard a Yeti baby, you know exactly what they are. Adorable little creatures, if you like blood and teeth and claws and ferociousness. But other than that, they're beautiful little baby creatures. They find a dwarf head stuck into the snow, and along with a body that is quite headless, should you say. The body and the head obviously coincide with one another and belong to each other. As they go to enter into the cave, the blood and guts begin to get thicker as they get nearer to the cave's entrance, which is about 5 foot in diameter. I have seen this very cave, and let me tell you, the scariness and the torture you can still hear as the wind blows on a lonely, cold night. There's a small antechamber with body parts all scattered to and fro. There's some heads, there's some arms, and there's even a couple of toes. There's a tiny little stone bridge that travels over the canyon that's in the middle of the cave that allows people or yetis, in fact, to get from one side to the other. As they go to traverse this stone bridge, at the base of it, they find one of the party members, but can only be identified by a foot that remains in a boot. This party member, as Keegan informs them, was the only one to wear this kind of boots. These Yetis, the vicious beasts of nature that they are, oh, I hate a fucking Yeti, have stuffed several heads into niches into the wall that they seem to have carved out with their own claws. There's a human head, a Goliath head, a dwarven head, an elven head, a halfling head, a dragonborn head, and the head of a Loxodon. These are all the niches, and they all are filled with the heads of previous victims that they have ripped their heads off with their bear strength. And not a bear as in a grizzly bear, but a bear as in they're that fucking strong. As they enter into the den of the cave, the roof is approximately 20 feet high from the floor of the cave. It's cold and drafty, but that does not stop the roamers from entering in to hopefully rescue someone who could still be alive, if nothing else to get the body to carry back to possible loved ones. And as they walk across into the end of the cave, they come face to face with a baby Yeti and a mother Yeti. The baby Yeti still playing with the head of its victim as it kicked and battered and basically played what a lot of people call football here. They were kicking the head back and forth. The mother would roll it back to him and the little baby Yeti would kick it again. The roamers, I'm told, stared at the mother and child, hatred beating in the hearts of them for what they did to the party members. Keegan still beaten and battered, and as they prepare to do battle with this mother Yeti and her little scared toy of a Yeti, they hear another growl. Oh, and from the outside comes Papa Yeti, and the battle ensues. Oh, the battle goes back and forth, each causing damage. The Papa Yeti, the Mother Yeti, little baby Yeti, the Loxodon, Bodar, Grimtash, Talarn, they all cause some damage. Flu Gauges is there, singing about it, dancing about it, and doing what he can. But in the end, the Rhymers are victorious as they destroy the Yetis. And this is where the story of Bodar, the baby Yeti fogger, is born. And it's still rumored to this day, friends, that there is a Yetidon that prowls the woods of Icewind Dale on very and extremely cold nights. It's rumored that this Yetidon is a mixture of a Yeti and a Loxodon. All was not lost though, friends, as they managed to save Perlu, who was one of the travelers with Keegan, although there was no other survivors of the party. Asterix, one of the party members who was a tiefling, was found frozen in snowbank outside the cave Keegan, having traveled this land many times in his occupation as a guide, was able to find the path down the other side of the mountain, where Flew, blessed Flew, tries to convince the party that they need to slowing down the side of the cave, which is in a circular motion, kind of like a little curvy zigzag. But the others decline this. On the way back, though, to Targos, the Rhymers come across a raiding band of orcs. And that's one thing that you don't want to do after having such a vicious battle with a bunch of Yetis, is to come across a band of orcs. But Grintash, having a sacred emblem of the orcs, having told no one about this, as though he was not ashamed, but as though it were a forgotten relic that he had gotten somewhere in the past, shows the symbol to the orcs, to the raiding band of orcs, which is part of the many arrow tribes here, and we all know how vicious the rumors of them are. The symbol is of their god Grumsh, and has the symbol of the many arrow tribes underneath it. And this, my friends, you all have heard of the Hallowed Grenade. This is where the legend of Grimtash was born. But they arrive back at the Three Flags Inn, which is where Nadina hugs her husband Keegan, and, as most wives tend to do, berates him for going off and being such a fucking idiot in times like this. And as she admitted to a promise that she would pay them these scrimshaws, she gives them some spouting whale figures, a smiling fox, a pair of dancing rabbits or hares, and a walrus with a inscription that says "Big Love." For some reason, she gives this one to Vodar, perhaps because he's big and he's in love with Yetis. I'm not really sure here. Rumors and legends abound here about what's going on here, but that's what I'm guessing. So, and as they are in the Three Flags Inn, they notice a very ancient-looking, battle-worn, battle-scarred female dwarf who's carrying a great axe. And as they begin to notice her, a drunken gnome begins to yell at them about that they could be the murderers. Well, having just saved Keegan, they have no idea what's going on here. And Ma ensures the little gnome there that they could not be, and they all stand up for them, for the Rhymers, and say there's no way they could be murderers. They just saved Keegan and, by in turn saved his wife and their unborn baby. The elder dwarf, though, begins to mention and talk about the murders that are going on, and she knows who's doing it, but she can't prove it. She hires the Rhymers to take out the murderer and offers to pay them 100 gold pieces a piece if they'll just bring back the body or the head, and she doesn't care. And that to further incentivize the fact that she knows that this person, Zephyr, is sacrificing his victims to the Frost Maiden, which is thus feeding her power. And that Zephyr works with Torga Icebane, who is a known murderer, killer, and bounty hunter herself, and carries around a little, basically like a wagon train, family and friends, of items that she sells for more than triple their actual value. I'm sure, if she was still around today, people would probably still buy from her because you do what you have to do, right? And now the Rhymers, who were just previously saviors of Keegan, have now been hired to be murderers, or mercenaries if you prefer that term. But the rumor is that the murderer and his vengeful vixen live in Bremen, or are currently in Bremen. So the Rhymers, they travel there, which is the last known location of Zephyr. And they are actually there, and through some manipulation, some scavenging, some heroics and treachery, all which make for a good story, would you agree? They manipulate Zephyr into a meeting. But before they can have the meeting, Flu Gage's, bless his young little heart, being young and brash, thinks that he will go ahead and take on Torga Iceland here in the guise of just wanting to talk with her. But Torgen nearly kills Flu, and by the fact of what Flu had said, that I can alternate here because this is a family show, Talaran nearly kills Flu for his actions as well. But before the meeting, back to that, because that's the more important case here. It is Flu that is indeed killed, adding more mystery and mayhem to the story that I tell you now. Flu is indeed sacrificed, and if Tabaxis have 9 lives, then Flu obviously spent all of them in one time as Sephic sacrificed Flu to the Icewind Dale Frost Maiden to give her more power, to more prestige, to basically build in upon her evilness. But true to Flu's bravery at the same time, Flu did not give up any information about the group. The Rhymers then were on the hunt because one of their own had been taken. Despite their disagreements with Flu Gages, the Tabaxi Bard, he was still one of them, and thus they had just been attacked. So they went after him. They went hunting him. They went to the meeting. And that is when they found out that Sephic was not alone. That he himself, being evil, had an evil twin named of Zephek. During this battle, which was getting kind of out of hand, a stranger that was short but lanky, not short as in like 3'2", but short as in short for a human, showed up. A ranger of sorts wearing a grizzly bear or a polar bear outfit. Rumors go on upon either way of whether it is a polar bear, a grizzly bear. You know, having not been there myself, I cannot say which one it was, because unfortunately the bear skin has been lost to time. But this boy, the age of 15, his name being Cass, which is short for Cazador, but it's a lot easier to say Cass, so that's what I'm going to do, and that's what he was known as according to the legend and the myth that I'm telling you here. Tore this bear skin off of the bear that murdered his father, and having lost his mother long ago to something, decided to wear the bear's skin and fur as both warmth and as a trophy to show that he is not scared of anything.
Hello r/blind. Have you ever wanted to play Dungeons & Dragons? Well, Knights of the Braille has a Discord server. Simply click the link below to join. We host sessions for new players. No site? No problem. We have accessible character sheets and dice rolling apps. We make it easy so that anybody can play. Join Knights of the Braille today.
It is now that Cass, part of the party he has become, later on, to one he becomes a kind of son. As they travel back to the tavern in Bremen, they find a very crazy sight here. It is here where they meet one of very few, if any more, a dwarf, which is a combination of a dwarf and an elf. Seeing that these two races cannot stand each other, it's very rare that anything like this has ever happened before. But both living fairly long lives, it makes sense that this could happen. Cass is very young and tender at the age of 15, and he falls in love with this dwarf, the name of Audley, after the first time that they make love in the back of the inn or the tavern. Audley is the dwarf's name because it is quite odd. In the span of minutes, though, Cass and Audley are married, and then they're unmarried because of the dwarven customs up there in Icewind Dale. And bless Cass's little heart, he doesn't know which way to go or which way to look or what he's doing. But while they're in this inn, they come across a halfling guard who is very well known for his bravery and trickery, according to some of his friends upon the docks. And they hear of a creature that has been attacking these vessels out there, these fishing vessels, and it's a Plesiosaurus. The battle must take place because they must help them, because this is their only livelihood that they have right now, and they have to do something to help the people out. So, along with the help of an ally, along with the help of an ally and an apparatus of a crab, which is an invention rare in and of itself, Torga Oisvane comes back to help them. She has been using the apparatus of the crab to travel back and forth fairly quickly for travel underwater. And Cass hears his mother speak to him from the mouth of the Plesiosaurus. She unfortunately does not tell him how much she loves him and cares for him and wishes that she was still there, but instead she says that she is so disappointed in the man or the boy that he has become, and it leads to wonder, could the Frost Maiden truly be Cass's mother? But slicing and dicing, the Rhymers begin. They hack, they slash, they kick, they punch. All kinds of battle ensues, and then they defeat the Plesiosaurus, and before they leave and head back, they begin to slice and dice up this creature and carry its remnants and the pieces of flesh back to both cook and to carry to a human seamstress who can they carry it back to a human seamstress who is able to take the pieces together and make them kind of coats and gloves and kinds of things like that. She is a maiden who has lost her son to a cult that is in another settlement here, and the halfling says in lieu of payment for the seamstress work that she's doing, and she's very good at her craft, by the way, they will travel and get her son back. She says that he is not in his right mind, but they must go to a place called the Tress, where it is rumored that this cult that her son has joined is going after a lot of Shodite to hopefully summon a dragon and control it to destroy Icewind Dale as they know it. And perhaps they are in league with the Frostmen, perhaps not. Only time will truly tell. But this village that's on the edge of a mountain here, it's not in the best shape here, and it's very much abandoned. It seems to be quite desolated, but there are still a few people here. In fact, they come across an abandoned candy store called the Flappy Taffy, and also they come across an inn where a gnome requires them that they must sign the book in order to enter in and to stay. Not because he wants to control them, but because it's the only way that they can receive protection here, due to the cultists having ears and eyes everywhere. But the gnome is able to tell them, in a roundabout way, about what's going on. And they notice strange little lights and shiny bits coming from the floppy taffy down the road a ways. But they are staying on the Dewdrop Inn, and they decided to stay there for the evening. And it is here that these roamers, these adventurers, they managed to somehow get a hold of another cultist, and they go into kind of like a dream state, and whenever they come back is whenever they have a large amount of chodite. For some reason they were able to bring back from a dream realm, and it is this that the cultists must need, although the roamers have no idea that they are bringing this back for them. And so now these adventurers, or these cultists, excuse me, they have what they need, although they do not know that it's there yet. So the roamers then head into the tress, which is on top of the, not on top of the mountain, but is on the side of the mountain here. Very beautiful structure, many turrets and a vast courtyard. Keep in mind, dear friends, the wind is blowing, the snow is howling as well along, and the ice in the snow is basically like cutting you like sandpaper. As they go across this moat here that has tons of ice floating in it, and enter into what the inhabitants or the citizens call the tress here. And once they enter in, they find a mute cook that managed to convey to them several different things that they must need. And it's rumored that there is a demon that lives underneath the castle, that perhaps he has something to do with the cold and the ice and all that, and along with the frostbite, it could be the reason that it's such hell here in the ice, or was such hell here in the Icewind Dale. But they meet a dwarf who is quite less than sane, and Kremtash used a bit of his knowledge of healing to heal this old dwarf for just a bit, to give him some lucidity, and he was able to tell them some information that they vastly needed. Well, as soon as they exit, friends, they enter in one age, and whenever they enter out, 12 years have passed. That's right, family and friends, 12 years have passed. Not only have they changed, but the landscape of the land has changed as well. And as they begin to head back to where they were staying, which has been destroyed, only the remnants of the corners of the buildings still stand, and which are burned and destroyed, but still they can tell that this is where they were staying. They come across a dwarf who is being bullied and beaten up by several of the Ice Maiden's warriors that she has summoned. They're called Ice Skeleton Warriors. Quite vicious little beasts they are. And they were taking out this monk who is a drunken monk, because they kept talking about if he had ale or if he had some mead, then he would definitely be kicking their ass. But they managed to save the monk, who is known as Puddin and lovingly referred to as Pudding Pop by many in the party. They managed to save him, but before they can celebrate their victory too much, they are summoned into a kind of nightmare reality. Not me personally, I don't say that there's anything such as the nightmare reality, but this was told to me by someone who knew someone in the party, and well, let's just say that they were summoned there, in which the nightmare was a dragon of sorts made of shadows and vapor and smoke, and said that there was someone in the party that had something that belonged to them. And it was not who they suspected in the dwarf, but it was in fact Bodar the Luxodon. Well, after a battle ensued in which the dragon was victorious in a way, because he had the Bodar agreed to terms, the dragon marked him with a emblem or a rune that has not been seen in many a lifetime. The rune cannot be mentioned, because even to mention it can cause fear and dread and other things to enter into your life, and cause more than just me, more than what I'm willing to take on of bad luck there. You know, more than what it's worth to me to take it on or to mention it. But either way, they head back to this reality, and who knows how long they were there, because whenever they returned, there was a Durger there named Adrian von Ziegler, who was both exiled and outcast due to his beliefs and not wanting to do what the other Durger and the cultists were planning to do, in which, you know, they had summoned the true dark dragon and had created it, and it had already destroyed 8 of the 10 towns in Oxwindale, and a new attack was coming shortly. This Durger, Gemseeker, disagreed with this and thus was exiled and outcast and told never to return, because on return he would be killed. As they decided to keep him with them, they began to travel back after finding the husk of a dead horse that belonged to Audley. Don't think she was happy about that, if she's still alive. As they travel to Goodmead, which is the next one of the 2 remaining settlements here, either Goodmead or Lonely Woods, that's under attack. They come across a female human who has been ravaged by more than just the weather, should we say. Whether it was Durger, orcs, the Yeti Dawn, or who knows what it was, she was definitely attacked and ravaged by something, and thus, you know, she was in very bad shape. They decided to keep her, and it turns out that she is in fact the mayor of Goodmead's daughter. So it is very good that they decided to keep her and bring her back to her mother safe and sound. And as they are traveling back, they get back to the village of Goodmead, and then they enter in, and it is at this point the legend of Ghelfi comes about, and which is very, very funny, and I know I cannot do it justice, but let me see if I can try here. Ghelfi, he turns into a large goat, and therefore he begins to run and dash, and he scampers all over different areas, and he poops on everything, and he believes that he can eat everything, and he's constantly hungry, and he drags around poor little cats all over the place here in the village, as the others head up to the mayor's home at the top of the hill. And of course, Puddin', he goes down to the local bar there called the Bottoms Up, and gets him some drink, and it really knocks him flat upon his dwarvish rear, if you know what I mean there. But meanwhile, Ghelfi is constantly running all over the little village here, you know, doing his best. He's eating carrots and potatoes and pooping on everything, and then Ghelfi has this kind of condition that when he shifts, he takes on the mind of the animal, which is very, very funny, but it can be very, very bad too. As this proved it, because everybody was scampering out of the way there. But the others are up in the mayor's home and have reintroduced Dawn to her mother, have met Jeeves, who is quite the elderly human butler there. They all go into some meetings after sleeping and eating and waking up. They begin to talk about what's going to happen here. And as they talk about the Durga who are going to take over, Ghelfi has a great idea that he will go back to the orcs and show them the emblem that he still has. And this is where he finds out that he is the Hallowed Grenade. Blessed be his name, is what the orcs say. And they give him a great grand feast, and at the end of the feasting in the days, the orc chieftain there says that he can give 1,300 orcs that will come and do battle with the Durger and anything else that gets in the way of what the Grenade wants. Hallowed be his name. So as they're beginning to travel back, the others are in the tunnels heading to Lonely Woods to try to see if they can get Audley, is what the cast is after, but seeing if they can get the people of Goodmead into Lonely Woods so that, you know, they can go through their battle plan here and destroy all the Durga at one time. But meanwhile, Lauren has disappeared in a snowy flourish of like a blizzard inside the mayor's office. But as they are traveling down these tunnels, they come across a group of 8 Durga scouts, and it's upon this realization, or this discovery of these scouts, that they Here, one of the ogres say, "There shouldn't be a problem now that Talorn has rejoined us." So, that is the recap of the story so far. What will happen? Oh, I do not know. If you'd like to know, then be sure to join in on the videos posted each and every week that we meet and record, or you can just wait for the recap here. It's been my pleasure. This is Tyndale, stepping out for right now.